Well, hello everyone, and the ship Showdown is here for Star Citizen, the yearly event where the community gets to vote for the ships they like the most, where you get to make a wee social media status about it, or a wee video, build a little Lego model, just do something of the favourite ship you want, even if it's just a screenshot in-game, post about it on social media, and be like, this is a ship I love, CIG, take the 16 most popular things, the most popular ships from that event. Now that could be, I don't know exactly how they work it out. I don't think they've talked about exactly how they worked it out. But basically, if you upvote someone's post, that makes it more likely they are going to be in the top 16. And if you make a post yourself, I'm like, let's just say if you, every upvote a post gets, it gives it 1 point, and every post someone makes gives it 5 points. Just, I really don't know how they work it out. They'll have some sort of way, and really the 16 most popular ships get added to a tournament. So today's face-off is the Fury versus the Arrow, but let's go down and make our predictions for the full tournament. So you can see here it is, like round 1, every day we vote on a ship, boom, 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 boom. Then it goes to round 2, the winner stays on kind of thing, goes then to semi-finals, finals and champion. And the 4 ships that get to the semi-finals will all get unique paints at IAE this year and will be the 4 most popular ships. They've been doing this is the 3rd or 4th year. Often the champion also gets an extra, like there was the backpack the year, the MPUV one, and yeah. The memes won it that year, the MPUV. But last year it was something more sensible, if memory serves. I can't remember what won last year. Was it the Mercury Star Runner? Then I think the Carrack won the year before that, I think. But every year I've been playing along. I don't think I've made a video talking about it, my predictions, but every year I've like sat down, looked at it, and I've went through and I thought about my predictions, and I've been right. Basically like 95% accuracy kind of thing, like the past few years, because I felt like the past few years it's been quite easy just to go, right, well that ship's way more popular, that one will obviously win, that one will obviously win. But I'm going through this year, I think most of them are going to be a pretty damn close call. I've not thought about the round 2 yet, or the semi-finals of that. We'll think about that as we go. But yeah, like this year, a lot of them I think are actually going to be pretty damn close. And as I said, the past few years, I think I've been wrong about 1 or 2 like matches per year. And that's it. Like, I've been getting the rest right. It's very rare that I've been getting them wrong, the predictions, because, and I'm not, that's not saying that I'm just really good at this. That's me just saying the past few years, it's been a lot more obvious, I feel, whereas this year it's going to be a lot more closer. And we'll do today's vote whilst we're here. So, right, we'll take a look. Day 1 here, the Fury versus the Arrow. Now, if this had been just after the Fury come out, I think the Fury would have won, because the Fury had a lot of popularity that very quickly died down after its release. People sort of love the concept of the Fury, like just having millions of them and throwing them at the enemy, but once you start getting into the logistics of it, and the sort of hype dies down of it, you're basically just a flying turret. They're so squishy. And the only time you're ever really gonna, I think they're ever gonna be heavily used in verse is by NPCs on maybe like a specific ship. Kind of like how the Cutlass Steel, which I think is a good ship for the game, for NPCs, but I think it is probably the worst ship you can purchase with real money. I feel like it's going to be like that. The Fury is going to be a great ship for NPCs just in swarms at some point, and the Cutlass Steel is going to be great again for when you're fighting that pirate faction that's NPCs that they like to drown their enemies in their blood kind of thing. Like, they could just throw NPCs at you in Cutlass Steels, not to fight you in the ship, but as like their drop ships, so they're just throwing NPCs at you. So maybe it's an FPS mission, you're in a base somewhere, the Cutlass Steels come down, drop off some people, NPCs for you to kill, then they go back and get more, that kind of thing. And we're getting way sidelined here, but yeah, the Fury, as I said, at release I think it would have bet the Arrow, but now I think the Arrow will actually be able to top it. And today we can put our money where our mouth is. And which one do I actually want to vote for myself? Let me just think about this for a second. Which one do I want to vote for myself? The Arrow. I feel like the Arrow's the better ship for people to own. It'll be better for it to get a skin than the Fury in the long run, I think, because as I said, but then this is kind of cool. It's got a cool factor that I like about this that I don't like about, not as keen on as this. I think this is cooler, but this is more usable. Oh, I don't know what I want to vote for. Oh. You know what? I'm going to vote for the Fury. I'm going to vote for the Fury, but I think the Arrow's going to win. Confirm. Let's see. So we can see 3,000. Yeah, the Arrow is winning. It's not as winning by as big a margin as I thought it was. It's going to be. I was expecting it to be more. This is like 55%. Like, this is like 45. Just off the top of my head, I'm not actually working that out. I'm just saying that it looks like it's roughly 55. I was expecting it to be more 60 to 70, and then the left, like the 40 to 30% over here. So it's doing slightly better than I thought. Right. On to day 2, the Scorpius versus the Redeemer. Now, I think this one, again, I think the Scorpius is a very loved ship, but so is the Redeemer. So I think this one's going to be actually really close. My initial thought was the Redeemer is going to win, and it'll be one of the easier ones to predict. But then I remembered that the Scorpius has a lot of rule of cool. Kind of like how originally I was originally thinking about this. I was like, oh, the Arrow's going to be winning by a landslide because the hype for the Furies died down. And this is like the old reliable light fighter that people love. But then I realised and I was voting for myself, I was like, the cool factor, so that brings it back up. The Scorpius is probably one of the coolest ships in the game, and even more is because it looks a lot like the X-Wing. It's got that X, and it's really one of the coolest fighters in the game. It's probably my favourite fighter in the game, to be honest, the Scorpius. But the Redeemer is also very, very loved. Yeah, my initial thought was the Redeemer because people love taking that thing out. It did get a lot of nerfs lately. But again, right now I could see this going either way. It's not as easy to predict as the last few years. I'm going to give it to the Scorpius. I think the Scorpius will move on to round 2. But again, that is pretty damn close. Alright, moving on to day 3 now. The Reclaimer versus the Vulture. I think the Reclaimer wins. I don't think there's much there. The Vulture is loved. It's a relatively new ship, but the Reclaimer has been a fan favourite for a long time. A long time. It was it's been a finalist. It's got all the way to the finals before in IAE. It got to the final the year, I think it was the first year they did the ship showdown, I think it was the Carrack, the Reclaimer, the Cutlass Black, and I can't remember what the 4th ship was, but I'm pretty sure that was that year, and it was a sort of purpley grey skin it got. People absolutely love the Reclaimer. It's one of the favourite ships in the game. People really love the Claw. I think the popularity on the Reclaimer is going to take it all the way through here. Plus, it's probably one of the best ships to have in-game now if you're not a combat fan and you're interested in multi-crew, because it's one of the best ships in the game at the moment for multi-crew gameplay if you're not interested in combat. Because if you want combat multi-crew, the Redeemer is probably the best ship to have in-game, which is why I originally thought that was going to win over, but then I forgot just how much cool factor the Scorpius has. But the Reclaimer has cool factor in that claw that people want to do drive-by ship stealing with. It has like one of the best ships for doing multi-crew in game at the moment for doing salvage, and then the Vulture is like the little salvage ship for going out solo. And I think it will have a lot of popularity this year because it's new, but I don't think that'll quite give it enough popularity to beat the Reclaimer, the fan favourite. Terrapin versus the Carrack. This is Yeah, this is actually easy. I would actually be shocked if the Terrapin wins. The Terrapin is like a fan favourite from way back. It has a very strong following, but the Carrack has an even bigger fan following for an even bigger one. I was going to say for even longer, but it's not all longer. It's about the same. But it's also the newer ship in game. It is a really big ship, and a lot of people just love the Carrack to bits. And the Terrapin at the moment is just basically a flying shed that you can't store stuff in. It does bugger all. Whereas the Carrack, at least you've got those med beds, at least you've got some turrets, at least there's cargo runs you can do in it, you can move your land vehicles around in the Carrack. At least there is some stuff that the Carrack can do, even though most of its functions aren't in-game properly yet, but the Terrapin has bugger all. Right, going over to the Corsair versus the Mercury Star Runner. Both these ships have quite a lot of fan followings. The Mercury Star Runner, I do think the fan following for the Mercury Star Runner is a lot bigger. But see, the thing is, the Corsair is one of the newest ships in the game. It's the new shiny. It's the flair of the month, almost, so to speak. And though that hype has started to die down, and a lot of people were actually quite upset with it because they didn't like it as much as they thought they were going to, it's still going to be quite popular because it's really new. So, going against a fan favourite that is on the levels of the Carrack fan favourite, like there was that year that those two were the finalists. Those two right there, that's been the finalist before, the Mercury Star Runner versus the Carrack. And if memory serves, the predictions for that year, that was the only one I refused to predict because I was like, I don't know who's going to win, the Mercury Star Runner or the Carrack. And I was like, I just don't know. And I can't remember which. I think the Carrack won, but only just. I think it was by a baw here for the Scottish out there. But yeah, so this is going to be a really hard one. I think because there was some people upset over the Corsair, I'm going to give it to the Mercury Star Runner. But that's a big. Would not be surprised. I could see this going either way very easily. And I think that is what I'm talking about this year. In spades. In spades this year. I could see a lot of them going either way. And it's even when I'm like, oh, this ship is the one I'm expecting to win. And like, I wouldn't be surprised. So far, the only one that I would be surprised if it was the other way was the Carrack and the Terrapin. If the Terrapin won, if the Terrapin wins, I'll drink this tub of paint right here. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. And if by some miracle that somehow does go like not the way I'm expecting, I'm not drinking that paint. Just saying that right here, right now, because that's the kind of luck I have in life right now. Well, not right now, but just in general. But I really do not expect the Terrapin to win. Right, so yeah, Mercury Star Runner just. The Constellation Andromeda versus the Cutlass Black. Both fan favourites, both have strong fan followings. I think the Constellation Andromeda probably has a slightly bigger fan following, but it is in not the greatest state in the game at the moment. It is a lot better than it used to be in the game, but the layout, the ship is not in the best place still. And the Cutlass Black is one of the best ships to have in game this second. I think the Connie Andromeda, that year I was talking about earlier, how the fourth ship, I think that was the Connie Andromeda, but wouldn't quote me on that. So yeah, I think I'd give it to the Cutlass Black, because the Cutlass Black is one of the best ships to have in game at the moment. Just because you can do everything in it. It's great at fighting, it's great at doing cargo runs, it can go solo, or if you've got a mate that comes on, you want to show them the ropes, you can have them in the turret, or you can go in the turret and let them learn to fly. It is a really great ship, and though you can do all that in the Andromeda, I just feel like because it's not in the best place right now, and because the Cutlass Black is a lot cheaper, a lot more people are going to have it, and a lot more people will... Yeah. But again, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Andromeda wins out. But I do think the Cutlass Black will win. Now, the 400i versus the 600i. Once again, both very popular ships. I think the 600i does have a much bigger following, but again, the 400i has the edge in the fact that it's the much newer ship. I'll be back in a second. Right, where were we? The 400i versus the 600i Explorer. So yeah, I think the 600i Explorer has the much bigger fan base. The 400i has it's the newer ship. It's a new shiny. It was CitizenCon last year. It was showcased initially. I can't remember exactly if it came out at CitizenCon or shortly after, but I remember we seen it for the first time at CitizenCon last year. And the 600i, though a lot of people really love the 600i's, a lot of them, they almost all unanimously agree that it does really need its rework. It's a really old ship and it's showing, kind of similar to the Andromeda, it's showing its age. It's showing it needs this sort of like layout reworks, it's needing a wee bit TLC and brought up to gold standards. But again, it is really, really loved. And it does have a lot of good forward firepower. A lot of people like taking it out for the bounty hunting ship combat missions. I think I'd give it to the 600, but again, I could see this going either way. I think the 600 will win, just because the 600 has just got such a big fan base, and it is the 600 is basically the 400 on steroids, so it's like the bigger, better version. Yeah. Moving on to the Cutter versus the 890 Jump. Now this one, I imagine this one's going to be insanely close. The Cutter and the 890 Jump are both insanely popular ships. Insanely popular. The 890 Jump could use a rework, and the Cutter is the new hotness at the same time, though, in comparison. It is a relatively new ship, especially compared to the 890 Jump. The 890 Jump has been around in Star Citizen longer than I have. It was added just before I started playing Star Citizen, just before I started getting into Star Citizen, the 890 Jump was added. Maybe like a patch, so maybe it was like a quarter of a year, half a year ago before I joined, the 890 Jump was added. Whereas the Cutter was last year, I think? It was last year, and it came out with a really good starter pack that was a really good value, and a lot of people love the Cutter. A lot of people really love the Cutter. The 890 Jump is like the luxury super yacht though, and it is very loved too. But I think the Cutter will pull out in front for one simple fact, is that not a lot of people have the 890 Jump. I suspect that a lot more people will actually have the Cutter, and so you'll be getting a lot more votes with the Cutter from people that just really want a unique skin for the ship they own. And yeah, I expect that'll maybe make the Cutter pull out that wee bit ahead. But apart from that, I think yeah, just the Cutter. I'll just keep thinking about it, going round in circles, and every time I go round in circles, I give the edge slightly more than before to the Cutter. But yeah, I think the Cutter will win there. Alright, we're halfway through, because we have the ships each time until we get to the a champion, and who I predict will be the champion. Let's think. So we have the Arrow now versus... Oh, did I say... now I'm struggling to remember now. Did I say Redeemer or Scorpius? I think I said the Scorpius. I think the Scorpius will win. I think the Scorpius will win that. Yeah. Yeah, that makes me reconfirms that I think the Scorpius will beat Redeemer, because I think the Arrow versus the Redeemer, I think the Arrow would win. I think that'd be a closer fight, actually. No, but I think the Redeemer would beat the Arrow. Yeah, I think the Redeemer would beat the Arrow, but it'd be close. And the Scorpius, I think, will beat the Arrow, not as close. So yeah, I think the Scorpius will be moving on to the semi-finals. It's just got that cool factor. The Arrow does have that light factor, like light fighter factor that people really like about it. It's really fast, it's really nimble. It was the meta ship to play in PvP for a long time. I don't know if it still is. I've never been really one for the PvP dogfighting meta. If you know me, I'm not really keen on dogfighting at all. I much prefer my big ships. So I'm really not up to date on that. It could still be the meta ship. If it is still the meta ship, I could see it pulling ahead. But to me, the Scorpius is the better ship to have all round, because you've got that option to take the second person, you've got the cool extra cool factor, the X-Wing, and as soon as you factor in, it's a bit like an X-Wing, it's a bit like the other space sci-fi with lots of big space battles. Oh, Battlestar, it's like that fighter from Battlestar, I can't remember its name, Battlestar Galactica, the fighter in that, it looks a bit like that too, like a cross between that and an X-Wing. People are going to love it for that, so yeah, I think the Scorpius goes on through to the semi-finals. Now here we had the Reclaimer, we voted in the Carrack. Oh, I think the Carrack wins. I think if there was a ship that was going to be able to take down the Carrack, the Reclaimer is one of them. The Reclaimer, Mercury Star Runner, and I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but I think the Carrack is a really good chance for getting down here to champion. We're not going to see that at the moment, but yeah, the Reclaimer is a ship that could give it its run for its money, so I don't think the Carrack's going to completely run away with it. I think it's going to be a close fight. Maybe at most 70% for the Carrack and only 40% for the Reclaimer. So it will be relatively close, so Carrack's not going to run away for it, but I do expect the Carrack to move forward into the semi-finals and be one of the ships getting the skin. So far, the ships getting skins that I predict are the Scorpius and the Carrack. Now, we predicted... Oh, I can't remember which one I predicted here. We'll say the Mercury Star Runner, just because it's got that fan factor from before, but I can't remember. I could see either one of these winning this. Like, I think it's going to be like 55% to one, 45 to the other. I think it's going to be very close. So we'll just say the Mercury Star Runner. I can't remember which one I initially predicted. And here, I think I gave it to the Cutlass Black. Look, I just noticed something. I'm predicting the the finals. Yeah, I'm predicting the semi-finals from a few years ago is going to appear here. So yeah, the Cutlass Black versus the Mercury Star Runner. That's really hard. That is really, really hard. Oh, this year it's going to be so close right up until the end, every step of the way. And it is getting really hard to predict. The Mercury Star Runner is a big fan favourite. It is a big fan favourite. But a lot of people are disappointed how it's basically a ship on stilts. So I think I'm going to give it to the Cutlass Black, which is also a big fan favourite. And I think more people, because the Cutlass Black, are going to own the Cutlass Black. So I think the Cutlass Black has no negatives at all. None whatsoever. It's like in-game, has all its gameplay. Lots of people own it. Lots of people love it. It's got positives everywhere. Whereas the Mercury Star Runner has all those things. But all its gameplay isn't in-game. So it doesn't have the data running type stuff. And a lot of people really don't like the crawl spaces underneath the ship. They feel like it's a lot of wasted space, and they don't like that little elevator near the entrance of the ship either. So it does have a couple of negatives, so I'm going to give it to the Cutlass Black. I think the Cutlass Black is going to be our third ship here. So we've got Scorpius, Carrack, Cutlass Black. Right, moving on. We gave it to the Cutter here, and we gave it to the 600i Explorer here. Again, both very big fan favourites, but we've already talked about why they're both loved and why one of them's needing a rework but slightly hated. The Cutter is the new hotness compared to the 600i. I think the Cutter will pull through. I think the Cutter is going to get to this spot here. So if it's not the Cutter, this 890 jump versus the 600i. Nah, I think it'll be the Cutter. I think the Cutter. So I think we're going to have Scorpius, Carrack, Cutlass Black, and Cutter. I think that's going to be our 4 semi-finalists and the 4 ships getting their skins this year at IAE, the extra skins. Now going on to the finals. Oh no, who do I think is going to move forward from the semi-finals to get into the finals? So we have the Scorpius versus the Carrack. I think the Carrack will win. I think the Carrack will win. I've talked about both ships, why they're loved, why they're hated. I don't really think there's anything else to say there. I think the Carrack will win. I think it'll be close, but I think the Carrack will win. Alright, moving on down. What did we have? The Cutlass Black versus the Cutter. Oh, I think this one's even harder. Oh, this one's even harder. Both Drake. The Cutlass Black is the big brother, but the Cutter's got the new hotness in comparison to the Cutlass Black. But the Cutlass Black, even for its age, isn't shown it anywhere near as much as other ships. Oh, that very, very, very close. I could see it going either way. But if I have to make a prediction, I'm going to have to force myself to make a prediction because we're making this video. I'd give it to the Cutter. I'd give the Cutter a slight edge just because it's the newer ship, it's the new hotness, and I wish I could see numbers to see if more people owned the Cutter or if more people owned the Cutlass Black that are still active in the scene. Because if you go back to ye olde days, if you include anyone that's ever existed, just because the Cutlass Black's been around a lot longer, I'd expect more people to own it. But I mean like more people on the scene today, so they're actually going to be here to vote. I expect it'll probably be I'd love to see the numbers and see who, if more people had the Cutter or the Cutlass Black. Because again, the Cutlass Black's been around longer, so more people have bought it. It's been a ship that people recommend for a long time, so I expect a lot of people to have it. But then the Cutter's a lot cheaper. It's almost half the price. Almost half the price of the Cutlass Black. So I expect a lot more people to have it for that reason. And also, they're both insanely loved. Oh, I give it to the Cutter, but by the tiniest margins. Again, I wouldn't quote me on this kind of thing. So that would give us the Cutter versus the Carrack. In the final. And this is where I think it's going to get really hard here. Because I think a lot of people are going to be voting at this point. A lot of people are going to be voting for the Carrack because they want the Carrack to win, and a lot of people are going to be voting for the Cutter because they want the Cutter to win. But I think a lot more people are going to be voting against the Carrack because they don't want the Carrack to win than will be voting for the Cutter. And I'm going to explain that in a second. The Carrack has been... I think the Carrack, every year the Carrack has been in the finals or semi-finals. I think the Carrack has been in. I wouldn't quote me on that, but it has been in the finals and semi-finals very regularly. It has got a skin almost every year, if not every year. I don't want to go out and say it's got every year when I'm not just talking off the top of my head. So, I think this year the Cutter might take it. Because I think there'll be a lot of people... I suppose at this point they're already all going to get skins. I didn't think of it that way. I wonder... it's hard to predict how many people are going to be voting for the Cutter just so that someone else wins. This is the Cutter's first year, isn't it? Yeah, because the Cutter came out... Was the Cutter out for Ship Showdown last year? I think it was, actually. So it's not the Cutter's first year. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. But again, at this point, coming this far, to just sort of predict the overall winner, the champion, I think the Carrack is a safe bet. And I think the Cutter is the underdog. But a lot more people own the a lot of people own the Carrack as well. But I do suspect a lot more people own the Cutter. I keep swinging, I keep going, right, I think the character's going to win. Then I keep going, no, maybe the cutter will do it. I think the cutter is the underdog. And I think the underdog might be able to do it. They might. So I'm going to leave it as that. I'm going to leave it as a... I expect the carrack to win, but I sort of expect the cutter to. That's sort of cheating though. It's kind of like I predict both. And I really should just predict one for the video. And that's where I'm really sort of struggling here. Because I don't want to just predict one. I feel like it... This is more so than I feel like it could go either way. This is more like I'm having to try and guess the number of people that will think a certain way. And that's very hard to do without any sort of numbers and without any sort of information to go off. Trying to get into the heads of other people that I've never even talked to. Oh, it's a very hard prediction. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think by this point, I'm either going to have been very accurate and I'm going to be like, hey, I can give myself a pat on the back. I did a good job at my predictions. Or I'm going to be way off anyway by this point. And I think, but this is kind of like the crown jewel, isn't it? It's the the chef's kiss, the finale, the seasoning, the getting it right would be the kind of thing that sets the tone for the rest of my predictions. And that's the fun hang. Like fun. It'll be fun going back and seeing how close I got. I'm just gonna say Carrick. I'm just gonna say Carrick. I expect the Carrick has a lot of fanboys. Not that that's a bad thing. It's good to fanboy for the things you love. I'm not one of the people that use that as a derogatory term. Carrick. I don't want to predict one because this is more so than just it being close down here, and I just need to force myself to choose one. I see two narratives happening here, and I really don't know which one will happen. So I'm just going to say Carrick. I think it's going to be a bitter fight. I think it's going to be like those years where it's really close and it sort of swings back and forth. Whereas like one's got 60% of the vote, then the other's got the 60% of the vote. I could see that fight going back and forth. But I'm just going to say I predict the Carrick to win overall. And it feels kind of like a cop-out because the Carrick, thinking back over the last few years, the Carrick's done so well. Yeah, it feels kind of like a cop-out just to have the Carrick in our final spot, but what else could you put there? Right, this has taken way longer than I expected because I got to talking about all the ships. Hope you have all enjoyed this. Let me know what your predictions are down below if you so desire. If you think I've been stupid, do you generally agree? Where do you think I'm way off? Where do you think I'm on the ball? If you've got any thoughts, opinions, etc., I'd love to hear them down below. As always, I love talking Star Citizen. That's why I make these videos. I hope you have all enjoyed this. I'll see you all next time. Bye. Bye.